welcome to MF Customs YouTube channel. We are going to install a Holley Terminator X on this 95 Ford Mustang. What we have here is the Holley Fox body kit, and we're going to go through each piece of it and walk through it, and then we'll start the install. So Holley provides an injector harness, their main harness. It's got an input-outputs on it. It has a connection for the ECU, along with all your other sensors needed to run the engine. It has your TFI harness adapter, along with its main power for the ECU, a 3.5-inch touchscreen display, and an adapter for the Bosch wideband sensor needed. The thing with the 9495s is you have to switch to a Fox body distributor, which we'll have to do in this. Now, with everything said, we're going to try to do this install in 90 minutes. But this looks like a lot of wiring, so I have a better idea for that. Let's take out the Holley stuff. And let's go with a solution we have designed. Our adapter, our main harness, which connects into the Holley, which connects into our adapter, and a benefit has 2 CAN connections, and along with, oops, a connection for wideband sensor, your fuel pressure, an external map, and oil pressure. And we also decided to install an optional flex fuel sensor. So I say let's get started and let's do the install. Alright, so we're going to get a timer started on this handy iPad. The goal is 90 minutes. We're going to start now. Alright. Car's already up in the air. We'll give ourselves a 10-minute penalty. We'll add that on to the end. Alright, so for the 9495s, unlike the Fox bodies, the ECU harness runs inside the fender. We're going to have to get in here and put a slight cut in it so we can run our harness that goes out to the engine bay along with the power through here. So we're going to go ahead and take the wheel off, take the inner fender splash shield out, and get started. One thing I forgot to mention, the wideband sensor. Okay, so let's crawl underneath here, screwdriver, get this flash shield off. So you want to come over here. All right, so up there is our ECU connector, or grommet I should say, that goes into the passenger compartment. We're going to put a slit in that so this way we can run our wiring out. All right. So, pull this out. Because this is an R&D car, it's already cut. So I think we'll give ourselves another penalty of a minute for that, because that doesn't take much to do. All right, so next up, let's get the seat out of the car. That'll be a couple 15mm, 2 bolts, 2 nuts. So we're going to remove the seat so this way when we go to work on the computer area we have more room. Anyone watching who has a saddle base seat that has a good seat covers, hit me up. All the Cobra R guys keep stealing them before I get to them. So we're going to need a 10mm to disconnect the computer. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm already sweating to death because it's like 90 degrees in here. There we go. So we need to get back in here and remove the factory ECU. We gotta disconnect some connectors, but that won't take too long. Okay, we get the ECU slightly pulled down, exposing the little 10mm nut before pulling it all the way down, so this way we can just where are we at on our stopwatch or timer? Uh-oh. Well, we got like 11 minutes of penalties already. Alright, so let's go ahead and get stuff ran. So first up is going to be our main harness and our adapter. So the way this will work, we'll tuck the carpet back. I've already put a small slit into my carpet, but I've had other ECUs in this car over the years, even some of my own creations. So, but that part isn't a big deal. But what we're going to do is we're going to run this right along the factory rail. So it'll just sit right up in here. Up and out of the way. We're going to bring it up and over, and there's actually a harness that runs across, so we just follow that. Pop those through. Watch for your can connector. Pull that through. I like to pull it all the way through. There's going to be some excess, but once we get the ECU in here mounted, we can pull it back and make it all pretty. Alright. So now we're going to go back, and before we mount the ECU or anything, we're going to get our sub harness put in. So the way that works, we're going to push this end through the firewall grommet and down to the ECU. So there's a hole up in here where the factory wiring goes. We're just going to follow that. Lay this across for now. Step down here. And back to that ECU where we were showing, I know it's a little dark, lights in the car, but we're going to push it down and in through there. So the easiest way to do it, I found, is take your fingers and push straight up, and then you'll just slide the connectors through, as I struggle to do it. There we go. Once you get the connector in, take your finger and just kind of push it down to start feeding it down towards the ECU. Feed it in a little bit. And then what you'll have to do is come into the car, reach up, basically like you're going towards the glove box. So right back up in here, you'll feel some insulation. But there it is. You might have to push it back just a pinch, but then there it is. Comes right down and through, easily accessible. So let's go ahead and get in here and mount the ECU adapter. We're going to take this. This is our adapter. I'm going to get a little light back in here. Whoops, sweating. This is our connections that go out to the engine bay, and these go to the Holley. So, I find it easier to wrap the engine bay one to the back side of the insulation. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. Kind of like that. And these just snap right in. Alright, now that they're all snapped in, and I have the seat bolt going right into my side, feels awesome. We now need to just slide this back up into the carriage. Again, watch your can connector because it always seems. Alright, so now we need to come in here and hook our ECU back up. So just like we did prior, bring it in. We'll tighten this back up. So this slips up into the ECU carriage, and then you can use the screw that holds the factory ECU into place to hold it. I'll have to find a replacement screw since I lost mine, but that gives you an idea how that'll sit up in there. We'll need to connect these little connections up. So for here in the engine bay, we're just going to route this along the back drip rail and then connect up some of our sensors. I'll have to go underneath and put in a wideband. So we'll remove one of the factory O2s and from the driver's side bank, replace it with the wideband sensor. We'll go ahead and get this across. Now, these are optional. We don't need to run the fuel pressure, the oil pressure. In our case, we will have to run an external map because we are supercharged. We have a Novi 2000 on this car. So let's go ahead and get the fuel pressure. Now we've made this, not quite 2.5 feet long. But we did that so for different makes and models, depend on where you put your fuel pressure sensor. Mine's sitting in the rail. Some people might have theirs down below, over in this area. So we left it a little long, so this way you can decide where you want to put it. So we'll play the fishing game and fish this down underneath. Pull it up. Connect it in. Let's put off my face. Alright. So we can't hook up the oxygen sensor yet until we go underneath and install one. But what we can do is run our map. So, because I was doing data logging with the factory computer, I have one in here. I'm going to try to do this without removing my upper intake. There we go. Snap right in. And this also has my oil pressure on it. So we'll put this up here out of the way. Okay, and then we're going to drop this down below. I like to run mine right in front of the valve cover, in between the accessory bracket, down and under. Then I'm going to jump down here real quick. Every car is going to be different, but I'll show you mine, if you can even see it. A little dark, but I have an oil pressure sensor right here. So we'll plug this in. We're plugged in, make sure that we're not touching anything. Alright. So for the next part, we're going to install the wideband. I'm not going to take you on that journey, anybody that's owned a Mustang and worked on them long enough, you've had to replace your oxygen sensor at one point or another. So I'm going to go underneath. Take my oxygen sensor with me. I don't have an oxygen sensor socket. I still use a wrench. So I'm going to crawl underneath here real quick and swap this out. I'll be back. Why don't we see how much time we're at? Down underneath, we can get rid of this stock oxygen sensor. We'll put this in. Now, I prefer the driver's side, but it's up to you. You could also do the passenger side. Sometimes it's best to run on one side, tune the car for a while, move it over, see how things are looking, and go back and forth. Or you can add a second. The Terminator X doesn't support two, but you could data log a second one inside the Terminator X. Okay. Alright, now that we got the oxygen sensor ran, I shoved it up here. And hook that up like that. We'll come back through and pretty this stuff up and mount it in places. But the goal right now is just to get the car to run. Okay. So out here we have done some optional sensors, the oil and fuel, which are, like I said, are optional. Flex fuel is optional. I don't have a flex fuel sensor on this car yet, but I will one time or another. But the external map I was required to run, if you are not supercharged or turbocharged, but are either nitrous or naturally aspirated, you can use the built-in manifold air pressure sensor that comes with the Holley. It's a 1-bar. So, all right, let's move over to here. We will need a factory ECU from Holley, not Ford. And I am going to use the bracket that comes with it. We'll plug that in and that. And this is where I go back to, we can start moving things around to where we like it. I still need to run power, but that'll come up here in a moment. There we go. All right, so power. So Holley's recommendation is to hook up to the battery, which we're going to do. You'll just run this through the same location as I ran the other. This will go through your ECU grommet, down and around, and this will run to our battery. Alright. I'm not going to use this one as I already have another one's unwound. Now, found some zip ties, so that took a little bit. How much time do we have on our timer? Because this took a while. Where are we at? 38 minutes. Okay, not doing too bad. So, I'm going to take a couple zip ties. I think I saw a shirt at Ford Ticket where it says, I built this car with duct tape and zip ties. Use this hole. That was originally for the sway bar for the GTs. Fun fact, this car is not a GT. This car is V6. It's just with a 2-cylinder upgrade package. Okay. And while we're at it, if you haven't noticed, we use low dollar sensors. All the connectors are pre-pinned and everything for low dollar. They're map sensors, they're pressure transducers, already set up for low dollar. All right, so now we got the power wire ran. I popped the ECU out temporarily just because it was in the way. Power out. Okay. Hook that up. We'll hook the power up very last. And tuck everything back in and nice and neat. This was designed to sit in here, so it really didn't make a difference. So that's why everything can go back to normal. So we'll take this kick panel. Slide it in. There we go. Put this door threshold panel back on. Alright. Pull our can out. Okay, so there we go. So we have a CAN bus up underneath the dash. That would be for the handheld, and this would be for your laptop and or tuner, whoever's tuning your car. So I'm going to go ahead and take the handheld. I'm going to plug it in up underneath here. Ta-da! We'll set that there. And we're just going to validate our connections. Ain't going to start without power. Alright. We got our power. These are plugged in. Everything up underneath was plugged in before we closed it up. Seat's not in, but that's okay. We don't want to put the seat in quite yet. We want to make sure the car starts. One quick check in the engine bay. Just making sure stuff's out of the way. I shoved this down back in here for now. This is something we can clean up. You can do what you wish. All that's connected. Our wideband's connected. Our power's all hooked up. I say, yeah, our power over on the other side is hooked up. And we grounded it, powered it. Our manifold air, give it a quick little tug. It's on, oil's on. I think that's it. I think it's time to try to start this thing. Let's open the garage. Alright. Let's see what happens. Fire in the hole. And it runs. So let's go ahead and put the seat in this thing and we can turn our timer off. What was our timer at? So we know, because we don't really know how long it takes. Where we at?
47.
So 47 minutes. I'm still installing the chair. We have an 11-minute penalty for having the car already up on jack stands and having that slice in that connector. That still puts us just under an hour. So if you take your time and don't race like I kind of was trying to see if I can beat 90 minutes, I think if you took your time, you could do this in an easy 90-minute install from start to finish. But one thing we didn't show when we started the car is all our gauges work. And just a quick video showing you. We got our Terminator pulling up. All the factory gauges work. This car doesn't have air conditioning, but if it had air conditioning, that would work right out of the box. Because we didn't have to modify the wiring. Because we left all the factory wiring in place, everything factory works. Right out the box. It's just the way it came from Ford. The way it's meant to be. Go. Got the handheld up there. So I put a tire on it, but we can worry about that after a bit. Alright, so we're pretty much done. The seat's back in the car. I need to put the fender liner in it and the wheel, but I'm going to keep those off for now because I need to do some maintenance on this car. But the last thing I'm going to button up is that ECU grommet. I'm just going to push it back up and in. Secure it. Oops, I'll knock myself over. Alright, now that that's in. Now, one thing I want to talk about the adapters that's really nice that I think too is it supports the Terminator X Max. We have a Terminator X in the car. Holley's HP line. And if someone wants to donate me a Dominator, that would be awesome. But it would support a Dominator if I had one. They are plug and play with all. The only difference is we just need to know if you're running an HP or a Dominator. That'll be on the website when you order. So we can make sure your harness is pinned correctly for the right oxygen sensor. Since it's all plug and play, you don't have to replace your harnesses or any of your wiring in your car. It uses your factory intake air and coolant temp sensors. Everything is stock on the car when it comes to the wiring and sensors. So this should absolutely be easily done in 90 minutes to 120 to 2 hours.